Donald Trump is disappointed with Vladimir Putin. Now, will the American leader hit the Kremlin? Zelensky had a productive conversation with Donald Trump. What will it change or can change? This and other topics we'll discuss right now. My name is Irina Uzlova, and today with me, as regularly, is Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel RashkinReport and RashkinReport in English. Yuri, hello. Thank you for joining us. Glad to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Zelensky and Trump discussed Russian airstrikes, the frontline situations, defense industry capabilities, and mutual purchases and investments during their call today. A very important and useful conversation with U.S. President Donald Trump, said Ukrainian President. We in Ukraine are grateful for all the support provided, which allows us to protect people's lives and our independence. We have done a lot together with America and support all efforts to stop the killings and restore a normal, stable peace. A decent agreement is needed for peace, and Ukraine supports American proposals. Today we talked about the situation, about Russia airstrikes, and more broadly about the situation on the front. And President Trump, according to President Zelensky, is very well informed. President Zelensky told thanks Trump for his attention to Ukraine. Earlier today, Donald Trump says that talks with Putin on Ukraine made no progress, and he's not happy. U.S. President Donald Trump admitted that in his conversation with Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, he didn't make progress on the issue of ending the war in Ukraine. Let's listen to Donald Trump and discuss.
We had a call. It was a pretty long call. We talked about a lot of things, including Iran, and we also talked about, as you know, the war with Ukraine. And I'm not happy about that.
Mr. President, progress on a deal with Ukraine? Do you feel like you made any progress?
No, I didn't make any progress with it at all.
Mr. President, why did you pause weapons to Ukraine? Why did you pause weapons?
We haven't. We're giving weapons, but we've given so many weapons. But we are giving weapons, and we're working with them and trying to help them. But we haven't. You know, Biden emptied out our whole country giving them weapons. And we have to make sure that we have enough for ourselves. Who are you with?
So is Donald Trump changing his position or not?
Well, it seems that as far as Donald Trump is concerned, it's business as usual with Ukraine when it comes to discussing rare minerals or taking advantage of whatever there's going on with the country and acting like everything is normal, ignoring the fact that Ukraine is not just being shelled nightly by Russia, but that it was America that was the main protector and defender and guarantor of big city, the Kiev and other cities in Ukraine that are being shelled nightly because U.S. provided so much of the military aid that now has been cut off. And we see consequences of this. And it's good to see that there's a lot of noise being made about this military aid being cut off, because if there wasn't any noise being made, there would be even less possibility of it restarting. But this is not the first time this has happened. This is a number of times that it seems that Secretary Hegseth and others in the Pentagon either initiated or held responsible for initiating, putting a pause on providing military equipment to Ukraine that was already authorized by the prior administration. Now, perhaps it was if President Trump was president then, and there was no President Biden, then there would be no war. But at this point, there is war, and this is, as you said, he says, Biden's war. Well, then maybe you should let some of those Biden ammunitions continue to do the work. But no, we see that Trump really is playing into Putin's hands in every way he possibly can. And that means not just saying that these are two kids fighting in the park, but this is really more like Alyosha Stupin caricature showcasing Uncle Sam holding Zelensky by his arms while Putin is punching him. This is more of a sabotage that we're witnessing, where Putin says that he's not going to stop, and Trump making his job at least somewhat easier. And when Trump seems exasperated because Putin refuses to acknowledge the reality that when you stop the war, good things happen. For instance, in this case, for Russia, Trump would find almost any way to remove any sanctions from Russia and unfreeze the money and assets and try to bring Russia back as quickly as he possibly could, using all the leverage and political capital that he has now amassed, which would allow Donald Trump to make even more money and be so productive for everybody as far as he's concerned. But instead, Putin wants to keep fighting, and Trump doesn't understand how this can be happening, but I guess it is because he's got no leverage against Putin, it appears. In this instance, Hegseth took the blame, but if there was no noise and there was no more weapons, then all the credit would surely go to President Trump for having ended this war. Such a peacemaker he is. And of course, Nobel Peace Prize is another thing that Putin, by continuously engaging in war in Ukraine, won't let Trump have. So perhaps this is an opportunity for Donald Trump to understand that the thing that's standing between him and Nobel Peace Prize is not Ukraine, but Russia and Russian aggression. And then he could have a Nobel Prize. But I think being in good terms with Vladimir Putin for Donald Trump remains far more important than anything else.
Let me clarify, please. Yuri, has Trump realized that Putin is deceiving him?
I think that when faced with reality that doesn't suit him, Donald Trump walks away and blames the prior administration. So he's not the only concern, or not concern. I think what's clear to me is that the only reason for Trump now to speak with Zelensky is to discuss not just business opportunities, but to check in to see if Zelensky is ready to capitulate. Because that's really what's happening here, where we have bad cop Putin and good cop Trump. Maybe United States should be a policeman of the world by some people's standards. But in this situation, Trump is trying to play good cop badly, and trying to check in with Ukraine to see after checking in with Putin, because it seems like Vladimir Putin is playing part of like a Trump's therapist that explains to him what's wrong, listens to him, and puts his thinking on whatever way he needs them to for a little bit of time, during which he calls either allies or Zelensky and tells him what he was just explained by the great, powerful Oz. And I think this is just very direct and simple communication. And we see this confirmed, incidentally, because Trump supporters, even in the United States, that are Russian-speaking, and that many of Russian-speaking people are Trump supporters, is putting out videos promoting the idea of basically capitulation from Ukraine. People that have actually had some credibility in Russia in the 90s. This person I'm speaking of in particular is now United States in the United States. I don't know under what set of circumstances, but he is from here telling Ukrainians that this is a good thing that U.S. is ending supply of weapons, because the peace is what's needed. War needs to stop. That's it. And I think Ukrainians are a little shocked because they can't believe that a person of supposedly sound mind would make those kinds of statements. But that's what I think is that's the attitude of people who are trying to be online on the same page with Trump. And that's what Trump, I think, is pretty clearly sending signals that he wants. He wants this peace, but not on peace of not Ukraine's terms. He wants it on Putin's terms, which is this just expansion of Russian peace, Russian world, Ruski Mir. It's nothing that's good for anyone because it brings with it genocide, for starters, and corruption. And what we have in the United States is a day of independence that rather than celebrate and joyfully, we see more and more people engage instead in protests all over the country. And the theme today is Free America, because people feel that independence is very much at stake. And I think that when our president shows his weakness by not standing up to Putin, and to see the images that we see now coming out of Kiev with the city burning, city on fire, that's not independence. An independent country would help Ukraine. But I think a country that relies on guidance in policy on Kremlin is going to do what we see happening right now. Engaged in diplomacy, engaged in slow walking Ukraine towards capitulation, and in basically destroying the reputation of the United States as it existed for many, many years, decades, if not centuries.
But Trump told reporters that he supports us and he works with Ukraine, and a lot of Ukrainian analytics after Trump's and Putin call told me earlier today that now Trump will hit the Kremlin with sanctions, with increased arms supplies to Ukraine. Are they all wrong, do you think?
Well, I don't know what your analysts are saying, but it's pretty clear that Trump's actions have been showing one direction here. But at the same time, it's understandable to me how people in a very difficult situation might want to hold out hope. I believe in the value of hope, but I believe that hope needs to be placed in the right direction and in the right vessel. And Donald Trump is not the right vessel for hope for anybody but Vladimir Putin. And I think that there are ways to be hopeful about the situation. The fact that Ukraine is going to produce, I think by some estimate, 2.5 million drones this year, I think is a powerful reminder of how much Ukraine has been learned to accomplish in the past 3.5 years since the big invasion. But I don't see that this president, this administration, even when it says that it is willing to sell Ukraine or discuss selling military aid to Ukraine, not aid really, just products, I guess, military products to Ukraine. I'm sure not even at discount rates because it's Trump, and clearly if he sees that you're needing it, he'll charge you more. But it's not even that Ukraine's going to be at the front of the line. Because it's pretty clear when we say things like we need certain weapons that for Israel, that Israel no longer needs, that this has nothing to do with actual national defense or national priorities. This is about punishing Ukraine for not surrendering to Putin as quickly as Trump would have liked. I believe 24 hours was the term he requested Ukraine to surrender during. And Ukraine just wouldn't do it. So he said Ukraine will surrender within 100 days, and Ukraine wouldn't. And then he promised Putin that Ukraine will surrender in 2 weeks, and it hasn't. So I don't know what Trump will do now. I guess nothing, just walk away and wave his arms.
But with such weakness, Trump also sent a signal to China, for example, to one of his key rivals and de facto enemies, which helps Russia and does not want to see its defeat, as China's top diplomat stated during his visit to Europe 1 year. And it is risky for all the United States.
For those that like to claim that it's important to support Russia because we need to pull Russia away from China, yes, it is important to acknowledge this statement by by China that they they can't afford to have Russia lose, because then the attention of the United States is fully going to switch to China. Therefore, the logic of pulling Russia away doesn't work, because China doesn't want Russia pulled away, because then they will get looked at. So that doesn't work. But by the same token, I think that for those that understand that all this talk about pulling Russia away from China is just a bunch of BS, then I think the situation becomes even more clear that China is using Russia as sort of a ram to run into Western alliances and to crush them, and to use to promote the interests of China. And if this administration was truly concerned about its China policy, then it would surely do everything else differently, starting with aiding Ukraine. Because when we don't aid Ukraine, that means that we're sending a signal to China about Taiwan. But I think that this is just rhetoric. This is just saying whatever may sound like the nice thing to say in order to justify whatever you're planning on doing in the first place. It's kind of a fig leaf of, we don't have enough weapons ourselves, so we better stop everything and get a perfect count of exactly what we have. Then maybe we can start working on all the accusations of corruption that have been started, because, it's not like they're just going to stop. They're going to start saying, there were accusations of corruption against Ukraine. We better get those people investigated now. And Ukrainians are going to be saying, wait a minute, you're not sending us military aid, you're not selling us aid, but you want to investigate us? This hasn't happened yet. I'm just kind of trying to imagine what could be happening next week.
One of the things which I think can make Donald Trump happy is that Germany is almost ready to buy Patriots for Ukraine from Trump. Will such step satisfy him?
Oh, yeah. If they don't say that it's going to Ukraine, maybe. Or maybe this is like these are being manufactured as a special secret birthday present for Vladimir Putin, because Trump is not going to do anything that's going to get in the way of his good relations with Putin. We've seen this over and over. That's the simplicity. At the same time, there's been an interesting article published by The Economist this past week that highlights what really a paper tiger United States military-industrial complex seems to be at this time, when we, for instance, promised Ukraine 300 tanks Abrams, and only been able to deliver 30. That's not a way that a superpower is supposed to be able to fight. And the problem, of course, is that the weapons have become much more complicated and sophisticated, and you can't just switch a line of on a factory that was making Fords and have them start making planes, like from cars to planes, because technology is kind of similar when 100 years ago. But the situation has changed a lot since then. We now have highly specialized weapons that take forever to get made and may not be the right weapon for the moment. Because out of those 30 Abramses, I believe only 20 were destroyed and 10 were evacuated or sent to be fixed. So that's not really necessarily the solution, that expect the United States to provide the weapons that they may take forever to manufacture, only to attempt to sell them to somebody else. This is not, it's a long-term solution. I think right now this is going to be much more about what Europe can pull together from its own resources, with the understanding that if Russian threat is gone, then there's a really, a lot of peace that could be breaking out all over the place, that will help everyone with their concerns about having enough ammunition and such. Really, if we didn't have the Russian, the Kremlin threat feeding a lot of conflicts all over the world, we would have a lot more peace. So I think that so there we go.
When you say that Americans don't actually feel themselves free, can you elaborate on what exactly is worrying U.S. residents the most right now? And do you believe, Yuri, that Trump can make America great again in some way, maybe? Because sometimes I can hear an opinion that he's succeeding, for example, in the issue of migrants.
He is succeeding in terms of terrifying people. And I think in that level, it's a lot of success because we see different parts of society reporting being terrified or demoralized. We see a lot of government institutions that are demoralized. That would be State Department, but also Veterans Affairs and others, because I think that's where the work of Doge and Elon Musk's efforts to eliminate people and services from our federal government against basically decisions of Congress and laws has led to a tremendous collapse of confidence and trust that people have in tomorrow, in whether tomorrow is their job is going to be there or their job is not going to be there, or what's going to be happening. We see this in terms of people getting hired and not hired and leaving jobs. And even though the numbers appear to be healthy, there's also less trust, I think, in the numbers that we just see coming out of this administration, because we know that they feel very comfortable manipulating numbers if they need to. But the stock market appears to have priced all of this madness in, and they're still going to record levels. There's going to be consequences for this, because stock market is kind of a lot of speculation on what might or might not happen. But we are fundamentally far less prepared for any sort of a crisis than we may have ever been, because we've never had an administration as inept at dealing with a crisis. So first, they're bringing us to a situation where crisis is likely to occur, and then they fill us with confidence that they will not be able to handle it. There are many things that are bothering different people. Some are concerned about migrants, and for instance, now the latest push to find ways to denaturalize citizens, people that have become naturalized American United States citizens, followed all the rules, got all the paperwork, but if they, for whatever reason, they displease the government, and it's not exactly clear what are the categories that are being discussed, national security, then those people can be denaturalized. Is that a threat for everyone? Well, only for 40 million people in the United States who are naturalized citizens. That's 10% of population. So that's one way to terrify 40 million people. But it goes far beyond that. There's a current possibility of charges being brought up against state and local elected officials by this administration if they feel that the election fraud or some kind of election violation laws are occurring, just to defend democracy, of course. So that's one way to see if we're still going to have free and fair elections in this country. So there's a lot of things that are happening very, very quickly, leading us to be where we are on July 4th of 2025, where a lot of my friends on social media, on Facebook, are putting up the American flag upside down, which means it's in trouble, or sometimes upside down made of barbed wire, highlighting feelings that many people are having about what is happening with America today.
Awful things, but we believe that...
I'm glad I can cheer up people in Ukraine.
Yes. But we believe that everything will be okay, and
everything has to be okay.
Yes. With your support, also. Thank you, Yuri,
and our conversations will keep everyone informed, and understanding that I think clarity is what we need in order to find solutions that are going to solve the problems that are facing us. And thanks to you, and thanks to everyone who watched this, I hopefully we gained a little more clarity.
Yes, and I say thanks to our viewers too, and Yuri, thank you very much for this conversation, for all your time and position. See you next week. Take care, please.
Thank you, and take care.
Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel Rashkin Report and Rashkin Report in English. My name is Irina Uzlova. Guys, thank you for joining and for watching us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, please, and take care.